Today, our topic of discussion are Scorpio Ascendants. Let's begin this discussion by stating that we are using Vedic astronomical measurements to calculate the positions of the planets and the ascendant. As a result, many people who are accustomed to viewing their chart through the tropical lens will find that if in tropical they were positioned as Scorpio Ascendants, they will in fact be Libra Ascendants in Vedic astrology. Now, sometimes these will overlap. There's a period of about 6 to 7 degrees where people can be a Scorpio Ascendant in both systems, but many times you will find that Scorpio Ascendants in tropical are actually Libra Ascendants. And also, many people who have the placement of Sagittarius Ascendant in the tropical system will find that they are in fact Scorpio Ascendants in Vedic astrology. So with that in mind, let's begin. Scorpio Ascendants. They are ruled by Mars. Mars rules the sign of Scorpio in Vedic astrology. So alongside Aries, this is one of the two ascendants ruled by the planet of warrior energy, drive, accomplishment, competition, aggression, sexuality, willpower. And this gives Scorpio ascendants a tremendous amount of will and fortitude to accomplish what they set their sights on doing. The sign of Scorpio in Vedic astrology has a lot of significances. It is the sign which naturally resides in the 8th house, so it has a lot to do with occultism, hidden knowledge, sexuality, deep hidden emotions, traumas, sudden events, accidents, deep karmic memories, and intimate connections, among many other things. Scorpio energy is a source of tremendous power for everyone who taps into it. So wherever the Scorpio sign resides in a person's chart, there's a source of power that that person can find in that area of life. So for someone who has Scorpio in the 2nd house, they'll be able to find a great source of power in accumulating assets. For someone who has Scorpio in the 10th house, they can have a great source of hidden power in their career. It's kind of like when you engage with this area of life, you're able to accumulate a certain type of energetic power. And there's a lot of confidence that comes with that. There are 3 nakshatras that reside within Scorpio: Jyeshta, Anuradha, and Vishaka. Jyeshta is the nakshatra of Indra, the lord of the gods, the devas. And it's a sign that has a tremendous amount of power within it, a nakshatra. You can find that individuals who have it are able to accumulate power, kind of be a lord over other people in many ways. Now, there's a lot to say regarding ethics pertaining to that, but that is part of the significance that it has. How to go about wielding that responsibly is an important conversation to have. Anuradha nakshatra is ruled by Mitra, the deity of friendship. And so here, we have this energy that is able to connect. You have the deep intimacy elements that are present within Scorpio. It's very interesting how you have like the kind of power dynamics, deep psychology and awareness, the ability to manipulate within Scorpio. You also have this deep need to bond, to have intimacy, to have sexuality, to make these types of connections. You can see a lot of that from Anuradha. And Vishaka is like an arrow, a target. It's the focus that an archer has when they're fixating on a target. So here you have that kind of obsessive quality of Scorpio, that target-oriented, goal-oriented, obsessive element of Scorpio here. So by studying the 3 nakshatras, and if you are a Scorpio ascendant, in particular the nakshatra which your ascendant resides in, you will learn a great deal about the essence of Scorpio and about the power that it contains. Each ascendant, we could say, has something of an archetype, something of a theme. We could summarize this theme perhaps with a title. Now, of course, this is simply a perspective, a suggestion. But I think that a good fitting title for Scorpio Ascendant is The Warrior. Now, what about Aries Ascendant, you might ask? Also ruled by Mars. Surely there's warrior elements within Aries Ascendant as well, and this is, of course, true. However, Aries Ascendant, I would perhaps like to title something like The Achiever. They're something like a go-getter, an accomplisher. And this can apply to many things in life. There's a great amount of balance in the chart of an Aries Ascendant because every sign is in its naturally designated house. For a Scorpio Ascendant, however, I feel like they suit the warrior archetype on an even deeper, more comprehensive level, and there are multiple reasons for this. One of these reasons is because the other sign which Mars rules, Aries, for a Scorpio Ascendant, resides in the 6th house. The 6th house has a lot to do with conflicts, disputes, obstacles, diseases, tedious things, work, things that can get in your way. So for a Scorpio Ascendant, whenever they encounter some work that needs to be done, some problem that needs to be resolved, an enemy, a challenge, an obstacle, an illness, they approach it with sheer willpower, the drive to conquer that obstacle. So that warrior-like energy and dynamic is at play in every situation that they face in which they kind of encounter resistance. And they often encounter many challenges. This is, of course, because their ascendant position is active in most situations in life. The ascendant is active whenever you're engaging with the 7th house, with the 4th house, with the 10th house, because you are always there present when you're engaging with one of those houses. Right? It's you who's kind of interacting with that area of your life. Now, there's some conversation to be had about how well that applies to the 12th house, which often goes beyond our identity and our established sense of self. It goes beyond all of those things. So with that said, at the very least, with the other, houses 2 to 11, the 1st house is active, engaging in all of those houses on a very consistent basis. So as a result, this scorpionic energy is always engaged. You see, for someone who has Scorpio in one of the other signs, in one of the other houses, they're going to encounter that scorpionic energy when they're engaging with that house. So, they may, someone who has Scorpio in the, 6th house or in the 10th house, they may encounter a lot of challenges and hidden psychological dynamics and power struggles in their workplace. Right? Someone who has it in the 7th house may encounter it in their relationships specifically. Someone who has it in the 11th house may encounter it in their network circles. But for a Scorpio Ascendant, they encounter it almost everywhere, in almost every area of life. And so you find that Scorpio Ascendants are drawn to the deep, mysterious, hidden elements of life in everything they do. They become natural psychologists, naturally have the ability to pierce below the surface of things, into the hidden waters of things. And they're doing this with every single house. It also means that Scorpio Ascendants often go through a lot of traumatizing events. When they move forward in the world, they are often challenged by it, particularly in the nakshatra of Anuradha, but in all of them, to be sure. But there's a very interesting quality about Scorpio Ascendants. If you're an anime fan and you've watched Dragon Ball Z, you'll know about the Saiyans. And if you don't, that's okay. But for those of you who do know about the Saiyans, you know that when they take damage, when they're near death, they regenerate and they're more powerful than they were before. They actually grow stronger from taking damage. Much, much stronger. Scorpio Ascendants are like this. And so through the challenges that they experience, through the damage which they accumulate, through the things, the obstacles which they are able to conquer and surmount, they become more and more powerful. wherever Scorpio sits in the chart, whatever house, there's a deep well of primal power that exists there. It's like a secret that person has. And for a Libra ascendant, that secret is their wealth, their assets. The more wealth and assets they have, the more powerful they will feel. And they may keep that inside. Like, I feel powerful with all of these assets. On the outside, they're very bubbly and diplomatic. For a Taurus ascendant, that scorpionic energy, that source of power will be a lot found in their partner. They're going to seek somebody who has the secrets. They're going to seek a partner who has the hidden knowledge, who's powerful, who's primal, who's interesting and mysterious and different and unique. For a Scorpio ascendant, that power exists within oneself. They themselves are the hidden mystery. They themselves are the source of power. And so for a Scorpio ascendant, whenever they're facing obstacles, they are able to look within and find limitless wells of willpower and endurance. If you think of the animal for which Scorpio is named, the scorpion, they have a very hard exoskeleton. And in their field, like animals that are their same size, they're like a tank. They can just take damage. You can rip off a scorpion's arms and it might still attack you. It's powerful. It's dangerous. It has a stinger which comes up from behind and can poison and instantly kill an enemy. You see, Scorpio ascendants are meant to endure. And so a big part of their life path is the fact that the universe brings them things which they have to endure. And through that enduring, they grow as individuals. Their first house, their sense of self-identity develops and grows, and everything in their life path flourishes as a result. Now, this is true to the point that if things are too peaceful in the environment of a Scorpio ascendant, they can actually get quite restless. They may actually stir things up to make them a little more chaotic. They may actually seek out a type of crisis or a type of tension, a type of intensity, a type of danger in order to challenge themselves, because they have a deep primal instinctual knowing that through these things which they're experiencing, through this tension, through this intensity, through these challenges, they're going to expand and grow and become more confident, more self-aware, and more powerful. So because the first lord, Mars, is also ruler of the sixth house, they kind of encounter problems and disputes and challenges, which is the signification of the sixth house, almost everywhere they go. But sixth house is the house of diseases, for example. You see, if a Scorpio ascendant gets ill, they have the ability to burn off diseases with sheer willpower. They could just say, I'm going to get better now. And they can heal. They can have miraculous recoveries, regenerate. And so using that as an example, you can get an inclination of what they are like and capable of in the face of every challenge that besets them. When a Scorpio ascendant seems like they're being defeated, it's actually a sign that they may be about to become a lot more powerful. If you watch anime and it's like the hero looks like he's about to get defeated, then he powers up at the last minute and just overcomes the enemy that had just beat him a minute ago, that's a Scorpio ascendant. So another element to the Scorpio ascendant's journey is self-awareness and self-knowledge. Scorpio is a sign of mystery, of hidden things. And so the Scorpio ascendant themselves are hidden, mysterious. They are often misunderstood and challenging to get to know. Part of this challenge is because they are on a quest to understand themselves. If you think of what occultism kind of signifies, it's like you're studying these deep, dark mysteries that the world doesn't know about. And so, in the same way you would need to kind of be in a wizard's tower or in an occult library studying deeply, trying to discern the nature of these hidden principles, a Scorpio ascendant is on a journey to do that to themselves, to truly know themselves on the deepest of all possible levels. And to do this, that's part of the reason why they'll put themselves through these kinds of challenges, because through these things, they're able to get to know themselves on a very profound level. Some martial artists, ancient warriors, would say something to the effect of, you don't truly know someone till you fight them. Another way to kind of interpret this would be, you know who someone is by how they're able to respond to challenges and crises. What is a person's mettle? What is a person's inner caliber? Now, obviously, there are other ways to get to know people, but that's a saying that has a lot of uh, profound meaning. So in this way, Scorpio Ascendants, they are warriors on the path and the quest of self-knowledge. And they can be challenging to get to know and to understand because they themselves are sort of an enigma in some ways. Not to say that they're ultimately so, but certainly there's a journey that's filled with a lot of enigma to eventually reach that point of knowledge. But also because they'll tend to be a bit distant with people who try to get to know them. They actually want to be mysterious. They want to be known on a deep level, and simultaneously they want to be mysterious. It's kind of fascinating. And part of this is because Libra is in the 12th house. And whatever is in the 12th house is something that a person sort of is distant from. So every ascendant has a sign that's in the 12th house. Wherever is there, that sign will kind of sort of sacrifice that thing a little bit in order to embody itself. All right, so for a Scorpio Ascendant with Libra in the 12th house, they will kind of detach from and be a bit distant from that sort of one-on-one connection where you're just like an open book, right? And part of this is because a Scorpio Ascendant will often actually identify with being mysterious. And so there's a very interesting dynamic here because, you have Anuradha Nakshatra, which is Mitra, the sign of friendship, which is about connection, intimacy, which is so much about knowing someone on a deep level. And then you have this thing about actually needing to be mysterious at the same time. And so this dynamic can cause them to be a bit confusing to some people because it's kind of like, well, I want you to know me. And at the same time, I'm mysterious and I want to maintain that mysteriousness. So you can often find that they are willing to play the role of being something like a puzzle that wants to be unraveled. Scorpio is a sign of psychology, and so they want individuals who are cunning enough, perceptive enough to pierce through, attractive enough, sexual enough to kind of see through and actually discern who they are. The Scorpio Ascendant is kind of like playing a little bit of a game. They're like, hey, if you can get to know me, you might be able to, but I'm not just going to tell you who I am, right? So, it's kind of like this sort of dance that's played. Like getting to know them is sort of like getting to know an occult text. It's like, okay, I've got to really have the discernment and the intelligence to get to know this person. And if they don't, the Scorpio Ascendant might just disappear. Like they might just behave in some way where that person is able to kind of like lose them because they're not able to understand how to engage through that intuition. You have to do it through the intuition. And then another interesting element of having Libra in the 12th, though, at the same time, is the fact that, of course, Venus is exalted in the 12th house, which is the house that naturally Pisces belongs in, and Venus rules Libra. So they actually, on a deep level, want a very spiritual relationship. Scorpio Ascendants actually want a very, very, very profoundly deep connection that exists beyond the realm, beyond words, beyond logical, rational understanding. The need and the intensity of that is very prominent and powerful. But someone has to have an equal level of intensity and a desire to truly match them, to truly understand them and merge with them for that to really work. Because that Libra in the 12th, making that connection is not easy. Someone has to be on a very high spiritual level, a very high intuitive level, to be able to kind of reach through in a sort of spiritual astral way to be like, okay, here's how we connect. It does take a very kind of a high level romantic interest to be able to accomplish that in its ultimate sense. The Scorpio ascendants are on a quest for knowledge. And that's true for the self-knowledge, like we talked about. It's also true for just higher spiritual knowledge, you might even say in general. Just like a Scorpio energy denotes occult knowledge, it's sort of like all these areas of life which they're engaging in, all these other houses, they're kind of like be able to draw the occult knowledge out of it. And you can see the quest for knowledge in the Scorpio ascendant's journey in the fact that they have Sagittarius in the second house, for example. And oftentimes, as a result of this placement, Scorpio ascendants will be born in households and families that value higher knowledge. Right? They can be very religious families. They can be families that have a very strong concept of dharma and of following righteous action. Families that prioritize going to university, to college. It'll be some higher knowledge of some sort. And this provides an interesting and important balance to the life of a Scorpio ascendant because Scorpio ascendants are so intense. They can very easily become vengeful and aggressive, like a scorpion, when they're challenged, because that Aries in the sixth house. So there's many ways in which this benefits a Scorpio ascendant. And at the same time, when it comes to their personal relationships, it can be quite challenging sometimes. When it comes to somebody who's just like hanging out, or just somebody who's like a bystander who just happens to get in the way, or if they do something that other people might be like, oh, I'm going to brush that off. I'm going to be a bit zen about this and just let it go. Scorpio ascendant will be like, actually, I'm going to attack you for that. And so the family that they're brought up in often helps to provide them with a sense of morals in some way. It helps to hone their ethics so that they know how to use their considerable power with good moral judgment. And another thing that's a signification of the second house is it signifies what we value. So a Scorpio ascendant values knowledge. And another indication of the capability for Scorpio ascendants to attain this knowledge is seen by the fact that Cancer resides in their ninth house. And the ninth house is the sign of Jupiter, is the house of Jupiter. Right, 9th and 12th. The ninth house is the house that naturally belongs to Sagittarius. So it's the house that pertains to one's ability to actually grasp higher truths, to actually be able to understand cosmic spiritual knowledge. It's high thinking. And here you have the sign of Cancer, which is the sign in which Jupiter is exalted. And so as a foundational essence here for a Scorpio ascendant, they actually have the ability to grasp the highest truths. They have the penetrating drive and willpower to actually obsessively go after that, like that Vishaka focus to go after it. And they have the high-mindedness to be able to naturally grasp it. Now, of course, looking at planetary placements are very, very important in this. If that person has a Jupiter in the ninth house, that's going to tremendously strengthen this ability. If they have a well-placed Jupiter, right? If they have a debilitated Jupiter, that's going to hinder that ability to fully grasp the higher truths, right? So obviously, we're talking about the foundational essence of a Scorpio ascendant here. And every individual Scorpio ascendant, you have to look at their placements, you have to look at their Navamsha chart as well to get the full understanding of their individual capabilities. But talking about Scorpio ascendant as a foundation, they are well equipped to grasp higher truths. Now, one of the areas in which Scorpio ascendants struggle is being diplomatic. So they kind of will sacrifice their diplomacy with Libra in the 12th in order to be themselves, which is sometimes being sort of curt, blunt. Like they will just delve deep into a situation or a person and bring that thing out, even if it causes them to burn a bridge, lose a friend. They will just make people mad very easily in their pursuit of what they feel is true or right, or if they feel personally offended or slighted in any way due to that being in the first house. All right. So, Scorpio ascendants have that challenge of needing to learn how to control their anger, of needing to know like when and how to use their sword and their cutting power, their stinging, venomous power. Because especially in the early life of a Scorpio ascendant, they will often sting a lot, even oftentimes when it's unwarranted. It's very interesting. A lot of poisonous animals, like I live in Hawaii, so like the centipedes here are really, really massive centipedes. They're just like humongous, and they're venomous. And what's very interesting is that the baby centipedes are the ones that are the most venomous. Like it hurts the worst if the baby ones bite you, because they haven't learned how to control the amount of venom that they inject. The older ones, it actually hurts less. The Scorpio ascendants are a lot like that. So when they're younger, they can be a lot more brutal. They can be a lot harder to work with because they also have very strong desires. They're like, I want that thing. I will destroy whatever obstacles are between me and that thing. So raising a Scorpio ascendant can be like riding a wild bull. It can just be like, it's so hard to wrangle and teach them. And that's why they have that Sagittarius in the second house, because that family they're brought up in has to have that wisdom to actually be able to raise such a powerful, venomous type of being. And, another element which contributes to their sort of social harshness is the fact that they have Capricorn in the third house. So when it comes to like hanging out with friends, just communicating naturally, neighbors, acquaintances, they're quite professional. They're quite reserved. They can be cold and dry and harsh. Younger siblings as well. So they can be a very dominating force in very casual situations. And so, when other people are just kind of hanging out, they're chilling, they're drinking, the Scorpio ascendant's like, boom, serious. And they're like, whoa, that's a lot of intensity. Right? So the Scorpio ascendant, the energy of that intensity, that ominousness, that intimidating energy, it makes them very hard to approach. A lot of that comes from the aura that they have, because they're kind of like, your aura has a lot to do with your ascendant position. Sort of like the air that you give off that people naturally kind of come into contact with when they're just next to you and they're like looking at you. So you have that immediately, that intense intimidation, that intense primal energy. And then also you have this thing where like when people normally just kind of want to hang out and be like, hey, what's up? How's the weather? How you been? They are like this very stern, professional, harsh Saturnian energy there. So if you want to hang out with a Scorpio ascendant, it's kind of good to figure out like what they view, kind of what they associate with their professionalism. So like they can actually hang out with work in a work type of scenario a lot better than they can in a casual setting. They're not very casual people to hang out with. But if whatever they're kind of passionate about in a work, diligent, disciplined way, that's that thing that you can use to engage with them, and they may want to hang out with you towards that. So they can hang out with people who they kind of know from work, for example, in a casual setting, or people who are in the same line of work as them. They're good at kind of hanging out and just talking about whatever that professional thing is in a very serious way. And they are often very good at sort of like conveying a sort of professional wisdom as well. They can make good consultants because they want to kind of communicate on that very serious level. Scorpio ascendants have important missions to fulfill, both in their own personal quest for self-development as well as in the world. And you can see this as an indication in their Aquarius in the fourth house. So this is ruled by Saturn. And just like Libra ascendants with Saturn in the fourth house, this can make it kind of difficult to have peace of mind. Right? So the fourth house represents this area where we feel comfortable, where we feel at home, where we feel just kind of like, whew, I can relax, I can feel safe here, I can feel nourished. So Saturn's energy here, it inhibits that to some degree. So this contributes to the sort of harshness that Scorpio ascendants have to endure in life. They don't have it easy. So, you can find that they have disciplined homes in some way. Homes that may be a bit unforgiving in situations when the Scorpio ascendant wants to be vulnerable. It's kind of like you're going to have to tough it up. You're going to have to learn about the world. in this area where most people kind of just want to escape the world just because it's your home. You know, the world is normally the 10th house. So here also you can find Scorpio ascendants being raised in a home where there is some type of theme of networks, communities, or a sort of humanitarian purpose or endeavor. Got my kitty friend here. Well, you know, watch me film some videos today. So Scorpio ascendants can actually be raised in communities or homes where there is an extended network, people like network circles. So like the friends are living in the home, or there's extended family in the home, or you know, some type of community setting. And you know, you can also sometimes kind of see a sort of lack of privacy to some respect, right? Maybe they have to live in a home where they share a bedroom with people, and as a result, they don't get as much privacy. So they kind of have that privacy element, and they really attach to it and identify with it, you know, due to in part because of this lack. You know, because their environment kind of can kind of invade their space. You know, and there's a lot of good things that come with this though too. It teaches them about humanitarianism. It teaches them a lot about humanity, and it helps with with that Sagittarius in the second house to sort of humanize and domesticate them in some way. But it can be a little bit challenging for the Scorpio ascendant to go through. Now, the fifth house for a Scorpio ascendant is Pisces. And this makes them highly creative, highly intuitive, makes them highly romantic. You know, here we have the house of dating, and cat yanked on my cord there, almost pulling my phone out of my hand. So here we have the house of dating and of romance, and you know, we have Pisces here where Venus is exalted. And so, you know, we have a very romantic person, like someone who's going to want to date individuals who have a type of spiritual quality to them, something that seems, you know, a bit ephemeral. You know, they're going to be looking for something magical in their relationship, something spiritual, something significant, something that exists beyond the world. They're not just looking for, you know, like money in their partners or people that they date. Oh, this person's got a nice outfit or something like that. They're going to look for something deep, something unique, something special. They're going to look for a spiritual connection with someone to feel that kind of romantic interest. And when it comes to raising children, Scorpio ascendants, with all their intensity, with all of their strictness and sternness and aggression, are actually quite kind. They'll want their kids to be true to themselves, because Pisces is a kind of energy where it's very, very yin. So they'll have a very spiritual kind of Jupiterian philosophical approach to raising kids. You know, they won't want to be like, when you grow up, you're going to have to be a this. You're going to have to do this thing. It's going to be like, you know, what do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, that's what you want to do? Okay. Well, here's some things you can do to maybe help achieve that, you know? But it's a bit of a hands-off to some extent way of raising kids. Now, it's not to say that they're not, you know, they're going to be neglectful or not disciplined or things like that. But there's a bit of a flowiness to how they do it. You know, it's not as serious as some of the areas in their life. And they're going to want to instill spiritual values in their children. They're going to want their children to behave dharmically. And that is something that is very, very important to them. And they can be kind of intense in the way that they go about expressing that. You know, it's very, very important for them to have children who understand like intuition and how to behave in a righteous way. Now, Scorpio ascendants have Taurus in the 7th house. And so this attracts to them partners who are very prosperous, who are very soft, loyal, you know, partners who kind of are like a soothing balm to their intensity. They can attract partners who are quite wealthy, partners who prioritize wealth in some way. And this can be a great balance to a Scorpio Ascendant who can often prioritize things that are maybe of a less material nature sometimes. You know, I have a Scorpio Ascendant who's like obsessively pursuing something, and their partner they attract is more stable. You know, because Scorpio is also a sign of things that transform and change suddenly. It's a chaotic type of sign in that way. And so there's a lot of like turbulence also in the mind of a Scorpio Ascendant. You know, there's just a lot of tension that they carry all the time. And so their partner is somebody who soothes that, who balances it. They're usually people with good heads on their shoulders who are grounded. Um, and they are often sometimes like more practical in sort of everyday sort of things, you know. Now, the eighth house of a Scorpio Ascendant is Gemini. And this is very interesting because it gives them the desire to communicate hidden knowledge. Now, this is very intriguing considering how many secrets Scorpio Ascendants like to keep. They like to be a secret with their Scorpio being in the first house. But, you know, when it comes to the knowledge which they gain of the hidden things, they actually want to tell people about it. Now, how they go about doing that, you know, whether they do it, you know, if Mercury's in the first house in Scorpio, they may be more mysterious with how they go about expressing it, you know, depending on where Mercury's positioned. Um, but generally speaking, they will want to write about it, communicate about it, talk to somebody about it, and spread that knowledge in some way. They like to empower people with knowledge, with communication. This also makes them study a wide variety of occult topics. Now, on the one hand, while they are usually well versed in a wide variety of hidden things, they may have some difficulty pinning down exactly like one specific art that they want to master. So, like for example, you know, if another ascendant, um, you know, maybe wanted to study something like astrology uh, or oracle cards and make that part of their occult practice, they could maybe hone in and focus and just develop that one ability to a really, really high degree. Scorpio ascendants will be able to develop abilities to high degrees due to many of the other aspects in their chart. But they tend to have a multifaceted view of their skills. So they generally will want to have multiple occult abilities rather than just having one. So because Scorpio is in the ascendant and they have so many powerful occult themes in their chart, like, you know, so many things that pertain to their higher wisdom, like Sagittarius in the second, Cancer in the ninth. It's not to say that they're a jack of all trades, master of none, but they tend to be multi-talented in occultic fields. So, with all of the challenges that they face in life, Scorpio Ascendant actually finds a tremendous amount of peace of mind, comfort, and support from their Cancer in the ninth house, from pursuing higher knowledge. So, you know, wherever Cancer sits in the chart, whatever house it sits in is a place where you can just feel at home, where you can feel relaxed and at peace. And so for a Scorpio Ascendant, they can actually find a lot of that peace and comfort while studying, right? They can find it at the library, at school and university. They can find it in on a spiritual pilgrimage. So if they're traveling to spiritual locations, like to a temple or overseas to a sacred site, um, you know, they can find it in a temple. They can find it by studying sacred texts. So here, you know, higher knowledge really of any sort, and they're just when they're expanding their understanding of the universe and they're pursuing their journey of the meaning of life, they'll feel more at ease. Right? And so Scorpio ascendants are really kind of driven just to like need just when it comes to relax, like they'll just actually be studying like as a form of relaxation and comfort. So when things are uncertain in the life of a Scorpio ascendant, which it often is, or intense for them, and they need to rest, they'll actually turn toward cultivating higher knowledge. And so just this natural tendency causes them to develop a lot in this area, really accumulate a lot of knowledge. And this brings us to the 10th house of a Scorpio Ascendant, which is Leo. So here we have a very strong position in the 10th house. The sun does very well in the 10th house, despite the fact that it's naturally the house that belongs to Saturn. The sun gains a lot of power in the 10th house, just like it does when it's positioned in the first house. And so here, Scorpio Ascendants, when it comes to their career, when it comes to their karmas that they perform in the world, they can really be perceived as a force to be reckoned with. They're like, wow, this is the real deal which just showed up. Right? The king, the royal, the queen has arrived when it comes to their career, when it comes to their reputation. And so, on the one hand, like, this can cause some people to want to challenge the Scorpio Ascendant in their career space. They kind of like and kind of create this dynamic where it's like somebody either wants to bow to them, like you would a royal, and be like, wow, like treat them like a celebrity, or someone's like, I want that status that they have. I want to challenge this person for the throne. And so, that challenging part is kind of where you see a bit of the struggle that you normally see between Saturn and Sun, since they're considered to be enemies. But it's undeniable that the power of the Scorpio Ascendant really comes through in this reputational space. Like, they have the ability to really reach very high levels of status, to very, very to be very acknowledged for their work, to be treated like a celebrity. They can reach a lot of fame. So this makes them very, very formidable in this area. When it comes to their 11th house, they have Virgo. This has to do with their network circles, their incoming gains, the money they make, their hopes, dreams, and wishes. So here, they can be very picky when it comes to their network circle. They can be very critical of people in their network circle. They can be looking at people in the network circle and be like analyzing them, being like, okay, I like this thing about this person, I don't like this thing about that person, and they're just kind of going about it in that sort of analytical way. They will often want friends who are useful to them. There's a bit of utilitarian energy when it comes to their network circle. They want to be able to find a gain by having this person as a friend, right? At the same time, they often want to be of service to the people who they actually consider friends. So they want to have useful friends. They also like to be useful to their friends. They'll often, in the network circle, provide a type of logical analysis and assessment, which can be quite helpful to the group. So, say, for example, the group's hanging out and they're like, yeah, we want to go do this thing, the Scorpio Ascendant. Even if everybody in the group thinks that thing is fun, they'll be like, hey, here's this point, here's this point, here's this point, that you may want to consider. Now, some people may find that to be not very fun, like, oh, you're raining our parade, we just wanted to go do this reckless thing. But the Scorpio Ascendant will lay down the logic when it comes to things like that. So they're very, very good friends to have. But if you want them to keep you as a friend, you've got to think about how you're useful as well. You got to think about sort of reciprocal exchange to some extent. Now, it's not to say that it's only transactional, because also, friendships have to do with the 7th house as well. And you have that one-on-one connection, which is Taurus there, but they also have Capricorn in the 3rd house. And it's very, they have these earth signs in the air houses. So, there's a usefulness element to it. It's like, if a Scorpio Ascendant is seeking you out to be a friend, you're probably talented. You're probably somebody who has a grasp of something that's very useful. They think that they can benefit by having you as a friend, but just know that they're a great benefit to have, and that you have to understand and be aware of the value that the Scorpio Ascendant is providing. Because there's a difference between, having a mutually beneficial arrangement, helping each other out, which friends do, and just somebody using somebody. So, right, the Virgo isn't the sign of just using things. It's the sign of, it's like Mercury, so it's trade. All right, so keep that in mind. It also means that they can be quite logical and analytical and rational with their approach to making money. They're not the type to just recklessly go out there and just kind of like do quick get rich quick schemes and and sighted ways to make money. You know, they're not the hustling type, generally speaking, unless other things in the chart indicate it. They're going to take a rational, logical approach to making money. Now, on the one hand, Virgo is very, very mathematical and great with finances, so they're good at it. On the other hand, Virgo also is a sign that pertains to having limited resources. So you'll notice that Scorpio Ascendants may actually have to struggle a bit to make money, whereas other signs, you know, if they've got like Aquarius in the 11th house, like for Aries Ascendants, um, you know, Taurus in the 11th house, you know, they can make money more rapidly, more easily than a Scorpio Ascendant can. So Scorpio Ascendant, they're going to be very, very good at calculating all of those things, like how to make money, how to arrange all these finances. But they may actually kind of have a bit of a trickle in kind of with how much they end up making. They really have to kind of build up momentum in a very calculated way in order to create that steady flow of income. You know, they kind of have to be calculative in order to generate it properly. So Scorpio Ascendants are very powerful individuals. They're individuals who are on a quest to learn how to actually control and handle that power responsibly and well and appropriately. You know, they're one of the individuals that can actually destroy themselves in some respects if they're not careful. You know, Scorpio Ascendant is that destructive life rebirth kind of energy. And so if a Scorpio Ascendant isn't mature and careful, they can end up being their own worst enemy. They can end up driving themselves into very self-destructive situations. Now, of course, they can regenerate and they can grow, so they often come out strong for this. But there are definitely times when, especially depending on what placements are going on there, where they can do this unnecessarily. They can burn a bridge that really didn't have to be burned. I think one of the areas where they struggle most is just in their social interactions, because they can be so intense, so blunt, where they're just like, boom. And it's like, wow, you did not need to say that or do that, you know, so intensely, which then caused this person to feel like they had to be distant from you now. So they can be a bit lone wolf sometimes, not to say that they're actually alone, but that they can kind of have that attitude. They can kind of have it like, well, you know, even if they're not necessarily alone, like they're willing to kind of burn these bridges sometimes because they're like, well, I can though. I can handle this by myself. I can actually be powerful enough to walk and endure in my own way. And so learning kind of like the humility and the diplomacy is something that they really kind of need to focus and learn. Like learning how like everything doesn't have to be of the utmost seriousness, which is pretty challenging for Scorpio Ascendants, generally speaking, because they kind of are inclined to want to treat a lot of things that way. They also are inclined to take things and approach things on a very, very deep level, and not everybody likes that. You know, Gemini Ascendants aren't going to like that as much. You know, they kind of want everything to be fun and happy and chill. It's like, all right, let's go around, let's be chill. You know, a lot of the air sign ascendants. You know, so people who want like a chill friend are going to have a hard time hanging out with a Scorpio Ascendant. So while it's true they have a lot of gifts, the ability to handle so many things and overcome so many things, you know, oftentimes they force themselves into a corner to grow stronger, to be correct, or to be, you know, to kind of hold their identity and their ego in a certain way. So learning how to be diplomatic is one of those things that they can learn like through meditation. Like when they go into meditation, altered states of consciousness is going to activate their 12th house, is going to activate Libra. And then they'll be able to better actually connect with people. So weirdly speaking, like, you know, Scorpio Ascendant might be super mean, for example, when they're sober, but they might be just the nicest drunk. Like they're drunk and they're just like, oh, actually, I love you so much. Because then their 12th house activates, you know what I mean? They could put them on shrooms or, you know, in any altered state of consciousness, or when they start meditating, they'll actually chill out quite a bit. They'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, I can be more diplomatic. All right, it's fine. So activate that 12th house if you or your Scorpio Ascendant partner, depending on, you know, if you're a Scorpio Ascendant watching this video or not, is feeling the harshness too intensely. You got to activate the 12th house to engage with that diplomacy energy, with that smoothness. And this can also be challenging sometimes for their Taurus Ascendant partners, who are often individuals who value feeling good, who value pleasure, sensual energy, who value things being stable, they attract these partners who value these things, then they're like the embodiment of intensity and change and transformation and all these things. And that can sometimes really kind of shock and wear on the Taurus Ascendant partners. And so that's one of the reasons why they can end up having like a series of relationships, because they have Scorpio energy, which is transformation, you know, in on their first seventh house axis. So they can kind of transform and go through multiple relationship cycles in the same way you kind of go through multiple life death cycles. So the sooner that they learn how to kind of not burn through people as fast, sort of like the more harmonious their life will be. So there's a lot more to say about Scorpio Ascendants. I feel like I may make part 2 videos to a lot of these Ascendant videos that I'm making. But so like if there are specific comments, things you would like expanded upon, then please post them in the comments below. So if I do make a part 2, I'll kind of know what you're interested in learning more about. These are very interesting Ascendant. These are very interesting people, Scorpio Ascendants. And it's almost like kind of like a weird thing to make a video about it, because it's kind of like they want attention drawn to them. At the same time, they totally don't. It's just like, no, you can't know my secrets. And at the same time, they're like, yes, they're talking about me. Like there's like both of those things at the same time happening. So, you're welcome, and I'm sorry to all the Scorpio Ascendants out here watching the video for all the things. But obviously, a big part of the journey is self-awareness and actually understanding your nature. And you're going to do that through these deep self-reflective experiences. So thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking with you more in the future videos. Thanks so much.